Welcome back to Wellness with Delaney. Today I'm sitting down with Cathy Goldstein. She's an acupuncture physician and the founder of True Energy Skincare, which delivers natural facelifts. That's right, I did not stutter, natural facelifts. We are going to get into all of this and more. I'm so excited for this chat. If you are looking to uplevel your beauty and your health completely naturally and holistically, this episode is for you. Cathy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited because this is like totally in my realm here. So I'm excited to unpack a bunch of things here.
Oh, likewise. I'm all about this. Okay, so quick little Google search, going on your website, going on your Instagram, what I see is natural facelift for True Energy. So are you telling me it's possible to get facelift results and look younger without injectables?
I am. And in fact, in 7 minutes a day, even, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, right? And in fact, that actually was my biggest pushback when I first started, many years ago, in like 2000, was it's too good to be true. And I'm always a little bit behind. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm usually a little bit ahead of the curve on like technology. So I got a lot of pushback, like these results are unbelievable. It's not possible. And I was like, but they really, I swear they are, because I actually had clinical trials done, like a pilot study with Dr. Pugliese, who's the big muckety muck in the field at the time. And, he actually called me after 15 days and was like, how are you doing this? These women look like they've had mini facelifts after 15 days.
Wow.
So it is possible.
Oh
Amazing,
my
right?
gosh. That's
And
amazing.
naturally.
This is what's crazy to me, that it's natural 7 minutes a day when, yeah, you see women going in for facelifts, for injectables, for lasers, da 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 da. Like there's so many treatments out there that are expensive,
Yes.
timely, long recovery. I got a laser peel once and it sent me out 20 days. It was a long
Oh my
recovery. Didn't
gosh.
expect that, to be honest. I don't know if I would have gotten it if I knew it was going to be that long
Yeah,
recovery.
they know
But
that.
yeah, so for 7 minutes a day, that's so doable. Like, can you walk me through what the regimen looks like and how it works
Sure.
to give you a facelift?
Sure, absolutely. So my angle is a little bit different, because what I'm doing is because of my background in energy medicine, acupuncture. I use frequencies in my practice all the time, and I'm a stickler for ingredients as well. With whether it's nutrition or skincare. So my whole foundation is really addressing the underlying issues rather than just the surface of the skin. So there's a few things that really pop out here. One is lymphatic drainage and fascia. So, without that information highway being wide open by having all the toxins removed, as many as you can each time, right? So having the toxins greatly decreased and the fascia open, we're getting that communication where the cells are actually performing better. And because I'm imprinting that magic wand with frequencies, I'm also, making sure that the information that is being passed along is the vibrational frequency of a healthy 25-year-old cell that actually has that vibration and integrity and strength, if you will. And then I'm using also the first thing I'm starting with is lymphatic drainage and repair. And then the second is I'm addressing the underlying muscles, the tissue that actually drag and pull the face around. So the muscles of expression that we don't really have, those counter muscles like we do in the body, the face doesn't have that. The face is muscle to muscle, muscle to skin. And so what happens is that as we have like all of these experiences in life, right? And no one goes unscathed in this lifetime. Those can kind of get trapped on your face. So sometimes it looks like we're prematurely aging because of the lines more than even the skin. Because skincare, you can kind of get some good results depending on your product, on your actual skin. But the reason why people have like lifts and tucks and injections and things like that is because of the lines, right? The lines between the eyes, the sagging of the eyebrow, the corners of the mouth to the nose and mouth to the chin, the sagging jawline. These are all the things that make people go, I need to do something, right? Because skin is skin, but sagging is like, feels like it. You look in the mirror in the morning and go, oh my gosh, when did that happen? So that's kind of the approach. And then after I get that lengthening of those muscles that are really dragging that down and keeping it stuck, then I'm doing lifting. So it's like the lengthening so you can get the pop. So I'm using that magic wand that's imprinted with frequencies and creating a very thought out protocol that's 7.5 minutes a day that actually gives you those results.
Amazing. Okay, wait, I want to dig into this because I think some people might listen to be like, okay, a frequency wand on your face and be like, is that woo woo? But there's really obviously, everything has some sort of electromagnetic frequency, right? And we
Yes.
are electrical beings. So I really want to dig into this because I actually don't even realize, or I don't think I've like discovered anything that uses a frequency for your skin in that way or for the muscles under your skin in that way. Can
Right.
you kind of dig into how this works?
Yes. So how I came into it really is I use energy medicine in my practice. So for example, if someone gets a treatment, they go into what's called an integration room. That integration room is packed full of things like laser, light, sound, biophoton frequencies, and all of those things that amplify the treatment and help you hold the treatment. Because really what it's all about is it's getting your body to do what it needs to do to be the best it can be, right? So that you're not dependent on, for example, the acupuncture. So it's about retraining. And so if you're going to retrain something, you need to be able to have something that increases the communication of the cells, right? So what frequencies do is if you will, they run off the information highway, right? What I call the biophoton highway or the energy highway. And by being able to, like you said, everything has a frequency. So you're either tuned in or tuned out or it's weak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm tuning in to the language that the body speaks and using those biophoton frequencies. Bio is body or life, right? Photon is light, and that's our light frequency, our energy. And really amping that up to a point where the body can understand what it's supposed to be doing. So
Okay.
in the physical world, like when we talk about light therapy and things like that, we have that physical world of the electrical system, like, oh, the stove is hot. That's the slowest, frequency, if you will, or actually like nervous system activity. And then we have the liquid highway, which is all the things that are in the blood or are between the fluids. And that's pretty quick, but not as quick as that information highway.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that
This
make
is,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm all about it. I've done a lot of work with a company that specializes in electromagnetic frequency from tech.
Mm,
And so I've gotten a lot of education around that, which has been a blessing. But I feel like even for a lot of people, they still don't really
mhm.
realize that frequencies are a very physical thing just because we can't see them, right?
Right.
They're invisible, so people don't think they exist. And I mean, we are
Right.
electrical. And then so I saw with like the actual skincare, you put like a frequency infused green ball in it. Can you tell
Yeah.
me about this?
Yeah, so there's a little green bead or a blue bead, depending on the product, and it's imprinted with specific frequencies it's designed to like activate those ingredients, the active ingredients, as well as work with whichever tool you're using, the face tool or the body tool. So, and I think that's like the secret sauce, if you will. That's like the magic. That's why Dr. Pugliese called after 15 days and was like, I have no idea how you're getting these results. It's the protocol is great, but the frequency is like that secret sauce, that magic.
Yeah, that's like another level. I really want to try this here and this now. I'm like, wait, this is so cool. So then tell me about the actual, so you're using the wand and then you have
Yeah.
the products. What is the skincare regimen you're using with the tools?
Okay, great. So first, a little bit about the skincare because like I said, I'm really particular about that. I really feel like skincare should be functional, meaning that if you have functional nutrition, that means it gives your body the nutrients it needs to rebuild and do what it's supposed to do on its own, right? So I'm feeling the same way about skincare and skincare ingredients is that it's not enough to just be a peptide, right? You have to be, a peptide that actually re-educates the cell to produce its own collagen, right? So it has to have the right delivery system. So it needs to be, and what I use is an oleosome technology that's like a seed, if you will, that enables it to not just land on the surface of the skin, but actually penetrate deeper into that cell where it could actually use those nutrients and be able to teach those cell, yeah, here's what you need to make an amazing collagen and be able to as an example. And so that functional aspect or what I call bioadaptive aspect of this ingredients is what's super important. So then to move on to how, how do you use the wand and all this together is that one, cleansing, scrubbing, super important. A lot of times people will skip the scrub, and the scrub is really important, but not just any scrub, because it shouldn't scratch the surface of your skin, but it should have enough to help exfoliate that dead skin cell barrier. So that's really key. I use jojoba beads, which are perfectly round, and they're esters, so they're smooth, but they have enough texture to them that they can clean the pores.
Mm.
Scratching the face kind of leads to those microabrasions. Microabrasions creates microscarring. Microscarring over time is much like a loss of elastin.
Mhm. And how
So
often are you exfoliating? Is that every day?
no, like every 2 to 3 days, every two to three times per week,
Okay.
because your cleanser should have like a natural enzyme in it. So I use fruit acids or fruit enzymes to help break down that skin cell barrier on a regular basis. So morning and evening, you're kind of working that, right, rather than just trying to like strip it off. So then what you're doing is you're using either the day or the night. I like the night, it has a little bit more slip. I also like doing the protocol at night because it's so relaxing and so self-nurturing, which we don't do enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like doing that at night and spending me time for at least 7.5 minutes a day, right? And using that to do the protocol where you're doing the like opening those lymphatics and draining the lymph. And then after you finish draining the lymph, now you're going up on lengthening those muscles. And then after you finish lengthening the muscles and popping the cheeks, lengthening the muscles in the forehead, popping the eyes, now you're going to use the serum to like lock it in. And even though serums are normally used closest to the skin, you've had enough of that product penetration with the protocol that you can use the serum on the last step, and what I call like really seal the deal, because it creates what some people call a fixative. Like it feels like it just opens and pops your face because there's one last part of that protocol where you're kind of lifting and opening.
Ooh.
Easy peasy.
This sounds amazing. I'm sold. I love this. Anything that's natural. And then I know I'm gonna have questions because I always do from the women who follow me. Is your protocol safe for like trying to conceive, pregnancy, and
Oh,
breastfeeding?
yes, yes. I mean, I always like disclaimer, always check with your physician if
Yeah,
you're adding something new to your regime or your protocol or your, life. But it is absolutely not invasive at all. So it's safe. Dr. Pugliese definitely called it, safe. So,
amazing.
and the ingredients are all natural. I am a stickler again for that. So all natural. So there's no, hormone disruptors. There's no chemicals. There's no hidden chemicals in perfumes, which is like
Mm-hmm.
300 possible different hidden chemicals. So no perfumes. They have a slight, some of them don't have any scent at all. Some of them have a slight scent, which is with like just a minimal amount of essential oil, because I like subtle.
Yeah.
I tend to be sensitive, as well as it seems like a lot of people are, to like fragrances. So
Oh
super
yeah.
soft, super subtle disappears. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. And like, I think that's really amazing that because a lot of the high end skincare I'm finding does have a lot of the chemicals and the endocrine disruptors, whether you're getting it like an esthetician clinic or through a company that's just on that higher end. Even I had skincare that I didn't read every product. So most of the products are clean. And I got a cleanser from that line, assuming because the other products didn't have that the cleanser was
Right.
clean too. Right. And all of a
Right.
sudden I started breaking out in dermatitis. And I was like, what is going on? Why do I have dermatitis? It was like like the perioral
Yeah.
dermatitis. And I was
Oh,
like, let me look at this cleanser. Sure enough, fragrance. As soon as I removed it, went away, never came back. Like I'm
yep.
so sensitive. And I think
Yeah,
that's
you
what,
are.
yeah, I can't even smell it. If I walk past someone who's wearing perfume, I'm like putting my
Yes.
sweater over my nose.
Yes. Me
It's
too.
yeah, especially
Yeah.
those synthetics and I think before your detox though, like I used to wear Lancome perfume and whatever and love it. I used to walk through the duty free store in airports and just like try everything, and then
Get
you
on the
detox.
airplane. Get on
Yeah.
the
Sorry to everyone who's ever flown with me when I was a teenager, but you do like you detox and then all of a sudden you can't tolerate. And then I think with that, one of my things that really drew me to you as a brand is the fact that you're free of all the different like petrochemicals, fragrance, phthalates, parabens. I would love if that's okay with you to get into like why some of these common ingredients in skincare might be doing more harm than good. Um,
Sure.
So let's start with fragrance. I think just alone fragrance, that word, what does it mean and why is it so harmful?
Yeah. So fragrance, the reason why there's so many hidden things in fragrances is because fragrances are proprietary, right? So that you
Hmm.
can't copy someone else's unique scent.
Right.
So that's why it's such a top one on, on my list on hidden chemicals, is because it's so proprietary that it's not they're not required to list anything.
Yikes.
Right. So that's actually the hardest part about reading those ingredients as well, is that they also technically don't need to be in the order of amount either. So
Really?
sometimes no. So most people do put that on there, but they can feature, like they can feature ingredients and list those at the top, and they'll like you just so it's wording, right?
Yeah.
Feature ingredients, right? Doesn't mean they're active ingredients either. So that's
Yeah.
another trick, is that the percentage of it. Active means that the percentage is at the amount that it needs to be to get the results that are being claimed by that
Mm,
particular ingredient, right? So resveratrol, right? So maybe that needs to be at an 18% concentration issue, if you will, which 18 would be pretty high, but still, it's not the amount, it's the concentration. But yet people can say it has a resveratrol in it, but it has like 0.01%, right?
right.
So that's one area of trickery. And then the other is where we're going with like featured ingredients versus list of ingredients. And so they can have those chemical ones low, where you might be, oh, wow, I recognize all of these words, right? But then you kind of get to the ones that have like numbers at the end, or, letters, PEGs in the front, or things like that, that are kind of the triggers for me to go, oh, let me just research that one if it's unfamiliar to me. So there's a lot of, um, especially, I was going to say deception, but I think it's especially because natural is making a move, right?
Hmm.
So, back when I started, natural more had the impression, oh, natural doesn't work. Well, we know that one, it does work. That when you actually put these ingredients in the forms that your body can utilize them, which is a key part, like sometimes people will think, oh, I'll use, coconut oil and, these larger molecule ingredients. That is also another reason why home crafted doesn't always give you the results that you're looking for, is
Hmm.
because it needs to be at a molecular structure that allows product penetration. And that's a key part as well, as on those ingredients, like what's the structure of them? How are they, where I'm going to use, the chemistry part of that. How are they bound? And what's their carrier? And, those are all really important things to know. Am I just putting something on the surface of my skin and that's where it stays? And maybe I get results for a couple of weeks, but then you think, why, I need to use the next best thing, right? And the reason why that happens is because you don't love the sustainable results. That's the one thing I really am proud of with True Energy, is I have people who are still using it from the first day I launched it and are
Wow.
still using it, right? Lots of people. So, and you know why? I also always say, what you do to your skin today makes a difference, not for tomorrow, not for 30 days from now, but from 10 years, for 10 years from now, because
Yeah.
it's like feeding your body, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, wait, I want to use this so badly. I feel like I've been getting the worst tech neck. I don't know if people
Oh,
use it a lot on their neck, but being a content creator full time, whenever I'm on my phone, I like catch myself, like going like this a lot. And I've been, I'm 27 now, and I feel like now I'm starting to, I take really good care of my face, and I'm really into lymphatic drainage and facial cupping and frownies, but my neck, oh my gosh, I've been starting to realize I'm like, I need to get serious about my skincare for like doing something about this because it does not match my face.
right, right. Yeah. And at 27, it's never too late. I usually say at 70, 80, it's never too late, but
Yeah.
my neck, right? It
Like, oh
makes a
my
difference.
gosh. Yeah, no, I'm like, this might be the thing that I need. Okay, so then with that, I mean, I think fragrance, to put it for like the wellness community, is kind of like natural flavor, right? Where you're like really just at the mercy of the formulator. And I don't trust what I can't see personally.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're kind of the same. And then
Yes.
what about like parabens? You hear about parabens a lot with the non-toxic community. Why are they harmful?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, you have to look at the source of things as well. Most chemicals start at a petroleum base. And when
Wow.
I'm talking about petroleum, I'm actually literally talking about like petroleum oil, like crude oil. That's the start of a lot of our synthetics. But it's the hormone disruptor. It's the what it does like I'll tell you something really interesting about like FDA approved and things like that for skincare is that the reason why skincare is not required to be FDA approved is because it's technically does not penetrate the skin.
Huh.
Right. That's the technical of it, right? So, and there's what is it, $1 billion industry, skincare, right? So if the FDA decided tomorrow that we all had to have FDA approval because we now know that the ingredients in skincare penetrate the skin. That's why we know, that we have hormone disruptors and potential cancer causing things that we've put on our skin that actually penetrate.
Hmm.
But if the FDA decided tomorrow that they needed to make skincare FDA approved because we now know it penetrates the skin, you would have to have every single ingredient in every single product approved. And
Wow.
to the big, dogs in this industry, that's a lot of ingredients and a lot of products.
Hmm.
So, so we're kind of at the mercy of just not even having our government support us in what we're putting on our skin.
Wow. And you know what's crazy about this? I feel like it goes deeper too than just skincare. Because if they were to recognize that skincare penetrates and can affect our hormones in our bodies, then they would also have to recognize that our apparel, our underwear, our activewear is doing the same thing,
Yes,
right? Anything you put on your skin. And I think
yes,
so, like, if they were to recognize with skincare, it wouldn't end with skincare, right? Then people would be
right,
looking at so
detergent,
many, yeah, all of these
yes.
things that are like off gassing. I know even like for me, I tripled my progesterone by quitting polyester activewear. Tripled it.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, and it's not actually an estrogen that your body will use, even
Right.
worse, right? So it's not
Yeah.
even like you can get, "Oh, well, where then get the benefits of it?" It
No.
doesn't get the benefits of you're losing estrogen because it doesn't work the same way.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought I was just, like, naturally low in progesterone, quit polyester, started working out in non-toxic activewear, a few months later, tripled. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so, I mean, I am so just seeing those numbers alone, I so believe that the power of what we put on our bodies, whether it's through
Right,
skincare, through our cleaning products, through our apparel, I mean, that is just as important as what you're putting in your body. Because what you put on like, our skins are semi-permeable. Like, our skin is permeable.
oh yeah,
You're going to be interacting with whatever you're putting on your skin
that's
in
right.
an internal way in some component, and people really don't realize that, I think, to the extent that they
Right.
should.
Right, absolutely. Our skin breathes.
Mhm.
It's like using an antibacterial in your body.
Yeah.
That's not how our gut needs probiotics, our skin needs probiotics. That's why my skincare has actually the body and the face have probiotics in them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay, yeah, so then tell me about the body component. Does this target, like, cellulite or, like, what can you expect as a result when you're using your body products and your body tool?
Yeah. So what I can tell you is that I the the feedback I've gotten from people without making claims, right? Because I'm like, how am I going to go around this, right?
Sure.
Um, yeah, is that I have people have said that resolves a lot of things by using that body tool because it re-sculpts in the process of also moving the lymphatics and healing that fascia. So now you've got the energy flow, right?
Yeah.
So and a lot of reasons why we have like, tightening on skin or even creping is because we're not getting the circulation. We're not getting energy circulation. We're not getting as much blood circulation. We're not getting the fat to plump the cells, right? So the skin care, the body lotion has to have those active ingredients to so they can replump the cells. It has to have like the phosphatidylcholine, which will actually work on the outer shell, if you will, of the cell, which is all fat, right? So
Mhm.
what's going to give it the nutrients it needs to refat? Same thing with the
Yeah.
face. So ultimately, and with the stone, because you are moving those lymphatics and breaking down the fascia, I have had people say that it resolves the cellulite. It
Wow.
actually, yeah, so I get things like my calves are resculpting, my butt's back up where it used to be. I don't
Nice.
have the bat wings, you know. Um,
Yeah, this regimen just sounds like a life changer for a lot of women. I know, I mean, and I'm sure men as well, but just speaking to a lot of the women, I hear so much of the like as they age, just struggling with, yeah, this is sagging or this doesn't look how it used to be. This used to be tight. There's like no matter how much I work out
yeah,
or how much I diet, right? I don't feel like the that like snatched. And of course, there's a
yeah,
component of like we age and like aging is beautiful, but that doesn't mean we have to like fully sag, right? And like lose the things that we love.
agreed.
And I think that's a healthy balance. So I would imagine that the women in this audience are just going to absolutely connect with this. And then I know for you, you have some perspective, some insights on Botox because I do know that some people
Mm,
might listen to this and be like, okay, well, this is cool, but instead of 7 minutes a day, why can't I just go to my injector
mm,
once every 6 weeks or 3 months, just snatch it all up, and then I don't have to do anything? So why would
right.
this be an alternative to Botox that would be preferable for some?
Okay. All right. So for first on like, I get that. When I was 49 and I looked in the mirror and I was like, what is going on here? I actually thought, am I supposed to be doing Botox now? And then it just kind of didn't vibe for me.
Mhm.
And I also know that the science of the muscles of the face are very specific. And so the muscles in the face are very necessary for our connection and communication in our world of our culture, right? So this is the thing that people aren't talking about when it comes to Botox and muscles of the face, is that if you and I are having a conversation and 90% of that conversation happens before either one of our mouths open up,
Mhm.
but maybe you're telling me a story, and for you to tell whether I'm like with you or not, and whether I'm being compassionate or understanding, you're reading my facial expressions, and they're
Mhm.
some of them are micro expressions. But this is the thing: my expressions are a micro mirror of your expressions, and when my muscles make those contractions, it sends information back to my limbic emotional brain, tells me how I feel about it, tells me how you feel about it. So when I bring that information forward, I have a better understanding of really what you're talking about and what you're feeling. And
Wow.
that's an angle that most people don't look at. And I think that that's super, super important because if you're a mom, your job is to, help those little mirror neurons develop, not only from infancy, because an infant's brain is like 100% mirror neurons, 100%
Mhm.
like learning of, like, am I safe? Does my mom love me? Am I happy? Is she happy? And mirroring everything that you do. But those mirror neurons don't really fully develop until we're about 21 as a girl, 25 as a boy. So now we're talking about teens who are looking at all the social media with, frozen faces. And it actually has shown in a fMRI to fire up the brain as if they're under stress, and more specifically, pain or fear, which causes anxiety. And, in my interpretation of that, with the teens having such high anxiety, they're also very, very connected to like either their parent is okay with preventative concept
Mhm.
of Botox, or they're looking at all of these social media content
Yeah.
and listening to the pressure, right? And so what happens is that if we don't fully develop that ability to really understand each other, then we're really decreasing our emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence has to do with how, it's that soft skill. It's that skill as to, how we connect with each other, right?
Right. Okay, this is a really interesting angle too. I mean, it makes sense developmentally that like when you're an infant and a young child, you're like developing, like you're learning emotional regulation, you're learning to read faces. It was the same thing to me as like during the mask like frenzy. I was like, these kids developing this aren't going to be able to actually watch facial expression from a young age. And what's that going to do to their like ability to develop like social skills and empathy, right?
Yeah.
And this totally makes sense, and it's crazy to me though when we're having a conversation, you're telling me all this, how much your brain does without you even realize it, like without you
Oh my God.
realizing. It's like all these little connections are being made before you volley back your answer, but I don't know. Like, I don't realize that my brain is doing all that, right? Like, I don't even
That's right.
compute that. That's
That's
crazy.
right. Right. The amount of information going into our prefrontal cortex to our limbic brain to determine, are we safe? Are we, under friendly fire? Are we,
Yeah.
is a huge amount of material, to the point that if we were even aware of 10% of that information, we would feel like we were losing our mind,
Right.
because we can't filter it. So the mammalian brain has different compartments that just say, you're safe, we can move this out of the way. It's kind of like, is there a bear in the room? Okay, I need to pay attention to that, even if I didn't realize it or catch that. A
Right.
lot of times like to use the example of, you're with your two children, and you're standing on the subway platform. You're waiting for the train to come by. It comes in, the door opens, and you see three different faces, and you don't know why. You think it's instincts, like your instincts pop in, and you put your hand on your children's chest and you step back, right?
Mhm.
But really, what happened was, you saw faces that you mirrored slightly to tell you that someone was anxious, or worried or scared, and you don't know what's going on, but your instincts say, don't get on that train, and you
Mhm.
you follow those instincts. Well, what if you didn't have the ability to have those micro expressions to understand what those people were feeling, right? You might just blindly walk on that. And who knows what's going on in the train, right? But the point being is that nonverbal is so important for not only our survival in that case, but our communication and our connection. Like, what if you're dating and you're trying to flirt, but you can't get that like coy little, eyebrow
Yeah.
lift, going on, right? Then,
Sure.
he's going to be like, she's not interested in me.
Yeah. Well, and this is interesting because I mean, growing up, yeah, Botox has been around for a while, but like commercial use Botox, what was it legalized in like 2000? So
Mhm.
it's not that old. And so I think
Mhm.
that like now we're going to see, and it didn't become so popular with the young crowd, I think, until maybe the past 10 years. And so I think we're really going to see what happens. This generation growing up is going to be kind of like a guinea pig generation.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of us, we didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up with all the women around getting Botox until I was a teenager, and by then, I'd had a lot of life under my belt. My brain was still developing, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not the
That's
same as
true.
being a little child. So,
Absolutely.
I'm like, "What is gonna happen with these
Yeah.
kids who are growing up seeing everything?" And these poor teenagers who are growing up seeing everything on social media, the amount of cosmetic procedures the second they open their phone, I'm like, "What is that doing to their brains on so many different levels?"
Yeah, and what will be interesting is what they equate it to,
Yeah,
you know? Because you would have to. It's the neuroscience. It's why I call what I do neuroaesthetics, is
yeah,
because it's a whole different field, if you will, of aesthetics. And it's, brain health and your aesthetics. And also, I think also just really honoring who we are as we age and what we bring to the table. And I'm not saying use dial soap, right? Aging is
yeah,
inevitable, but what we do about it is, totally up to us, right? So, but I do think that women should really hold each other up. And
mhm.
sometimes we just don't do that, and media is so easy to not do that because it's not in person, right?
Right.
So snarky is sometimes not unusual, but
Yeah.
I really believe that we should hold each other up, and wear our life in a proud way. When you look at somebody and you really kind of feel love towards that person, a lot of times that doesn't happen right away. It happens when you get to know them, and because that communication is nonverbal, it's a lot of their facial expressions that draw you to them and make you feel, connected to them,
Yeah.
is because you recognize those facial expressions and they light up your mammalian brain in like, oh, love, comfort. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens with that, but I think it's amazing to see how many alternatives are coming out there that
Mhm.
are safe, that are honestly promoting health, because I think when we're our most healthy, detoxed, like, lymph is flowing, right? We're in our best healthy self, that's when we look the most beautiful and vibrant, and I really do believe a lot of these procedures are trying to mimic health, right? Like, healthy hormones, we get lip filler instead, well, I don't, but people get lip filler instead, it mimics healthy hormones, right? Like, fake nails, French tips, it mimics healthy, strong nails because we have healthy thyroid, and, like, it's all of these things I really think
Mhm.
is just in some ways can be a counterfeit to true vitality, which ultimately is going to be somebody at their most beautiful state.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? All of those things, I totally agree with you. I think it's a really interesting interpretation of why we do those. And I think that like that top layer is going to be because it's not authentic and
Yeah.
it doesn't create connectivity with each other. It's not going to, it's not going to
Yeah.
hold, if you will. The
Yeah,
resilience is not
absolutely.
going to be there, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm curious for you as an acupuncture physician, have you ever done or at least heard of like the acupuncture facelifts?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. You're really increasing the vitality and getting some great results. The reason why I went with the home kit, if you will, to be able to do the natural facelift at home is because it's expensive.
Yeah.
If you go to an acupuncturist and they have like all the lights and the treatments and the therapies and the acupuncture, it can be, $350 a treatment. And then you need
Mhm.
multiple, like a set of treatments, 10 to 12 treatments. And then you need preventative treatments. So I'm all for it. But if you can put a tool either in between it or you can't afford it and you can definitely afford something at home like this,
Yeah.
that's kind of a no brainer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I go to acupuncture and it's so expensive. And which I don't do it cosmetically. I don't know any cosmetic acupuncturists near me, but I just do it for like I originally went for eczema actually. I had
Oh,
chronic eczema for 4 years. And I swear it was heavy metal toxicity because
mm,
it came on when I got engaged and it was right by where I wore my engagement ring, which was solid gold, but it was really
yeah.
interesting because I never wore rings all the time. And then it developed and then all of a sudden, so it was just really irritating for 4 years. Never went away, but then went through a lot of like emotional stuff in my family over the holidays last year, like just a really hard
Mhm.
time, multiple deaths in the family, and it turned dyshydrautic. And then it
Right.
was like burning on fire. I was waking up every night in the middle of the night, like losing sleep. I was in so much pain just for this little spot on my hand. And I tried everything, right? Nothing worked. I went on a last ditch result, went to acupuncture. When I tell you that man healed it, like within the first week it was gone and then it never came back. And now anytime I've had any ailments or hormone issues or I'm sick or whatever, like that's where I've been going instead of a doctor because which he's a TCM doctor, but like instead of a
Mm,
traditional like allopathic doctor, right?
right, right.
And the results are always instantaneous. Like my body responds to it so well. So I'm a
Great.
believer. I tell everyone to go to acupuncture. Can you tell me a little bit like how it works? Like, because this is something I still don't get is like, how are these needles making such a big impact on someone's body?
Yeah. So kind of the the fundamental quick version of that, if you will,
Is a loaded
is
question.
that yeah, I know it is a loaded question. It's like, but I gotcha. Um, essentially, what it is in a fundamental way, acupuncture treats the root of the problem rather than the symptoms. If you treat the root of the problem, you're going to get results that are lasting. As far as the acupuncture itself, when you're talking about like all these little needles in different areas, is that there's 14 different meridian or pathways on the body, and each pathway, each meridian has multiple acupuncture points on that meridian, and each point has what we call an action and effect, meaning that based on like the Buddhist study of the acupuncture meridian and going from what's considered a jing well, a well, to a river, like or to a lake, if you will, that each point has an action and effect based on what its energy is on that specific meridian. So, for example, the wedding band with, all of the what I would call heat, and wind, because in Chinese medicine, that red fiery hot is heat and wind. Then you pick specific acupuncture points, making sure that you understand why you got that in the first place. Like, what's the underlying weakness that your body has? And maybe it's like spleen chi, deficiency with heat, fire, with wind or fire, right, on the lungs. I mean, everybody's a little bit different, and that requires more like a differential diagnosis. But
Mhm.
just to kind of throw out like some of the weird ideas that acupuncturists think about when they're thinking about, oh, what is this, and what's the underlying issue, and looking at your tongue and taking your pulse are the two key ways to really be able to see what the underlying issue is. Because the pulse, unlike the pulse that you would take allopathically, it has 3 different locations and 2 to 3 different depths, depending on your type of acupuncture you do. And each one of those corresponds to an acupuncture meridian. So it gives us an idea, not only what's going on with that acupuncture meridian at the time, but also its history. And then when you put it all together, what the overall feel of that pulse is, not just as an individual meridian, but how it works together. So that's
Wow.
like the information that we get from that.
Wow. I think it's so crazy how much you can learn from the tongue and from the pulse.
Yes.
Like I'll stick out my tongue and my acupuncture doctor is like, "Oh, so you haven't been sleeping well." I'm like, "Yeah." What the heck? And I also recently learned, maybe you can speak more on this, but I learned that like a traditional Chinese medicine doctor or acupuncturist is trained to actually be able to feel like at a certain point in pregnancy, they can feel the baby's heartbeat. Like, how does that work?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So in Chinese medicine, a pregnancy is it's kind of considered an obstruction, if you will. So the pulse clearly gets what's called slippery and
Mhm.
specifically on specific meridians. So it kind of feels like pearls in a pan, right? And so, but where it is makes a difference. So through the cycle, you'll feel things like, the that you may actually even feel premenstrual when you're pregnant because your body's like, am I menstruating? I'm not sure if I'm going to menstruate, what's going on. But then it changes. So instead of it having that bounding premenstrual kind of feeling, instead of it moving to your other side, because usually you can feel like, I can tell if someone's, a week out from their menstrual cycle or 24 hours from their menstrual cycle.
Wow.
So it starts changing in where you can absolutely feel like if you're not getting sick, then this is a pregnant pulse, right? And it's
Yeah.
also much deeper than just like if you're feeling sick, you can kind of have that pearls in a pan, but it's very superficial and bounding, right? So, and as the pregnancy goes, that pulse gets stronger. So I usually can tell like boy, girl, based on which side of the pulse feels a little bit different.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really amazing what you can feel from a pulse.
Wow. Wait, what do you feel when it's a boy and what do you feel when it's a girl? This is really crazy.
So, so you'll feel a difference in the sides. So you just kind
Mhm.
of have to, gauge that person's pulse and figure out where they're, especially depending on where it is in the pregnancy. Like earlier in the pregnancy, I can kind of get a feel like this is, stronger on your left side. I'm thinking maybe boy, but then it depends. I might say, let me give it another month and let me see if it shifts, right? But usually you can tell that pretty solid, like, I mean, 90% of the time.
That's crazy cool. That's really
But
amazing. It is,
if you don't want to know, if you're pregnant,
yeah.
anyone out there and you don't want to know, don't ask your acupuncturist.
Yeah, don't ask 'cause they might just tell you. I still don't understand how people do. I mean, I think it's beautiful the idea of being surprised, but in all practicality, that would never be me. I was
Oh,
like, "Tell
really?
me as." Oh, I'm a preparer, I'm a researcher, and I'm like a preparation fanatic,
Right,
and I
right.
like all the information, like, to learn as much as nerd out as much as possible. That's just so
I
my
love that.
jam.
Yeah, I get
Okay,
that. I get that.
yeah. It's definitely I think it's that the wellness community. It's really hard to be in this world, right? And not have, like, an intense level of curiosity about
Yes.
everything around you.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So
Yeah.
with acupuncture, what have been some of the most like surprising, I guess surprising to people outside of the industry, right? Surprising conditions that you have been able to see amazing progress in that people might not even realize going to an acupuncturist could be a solution.
All right. So it depends on what kind of acupuncture you do and what other treatments that you do in addition to that. So I do a technique called neuroemotional technique, and it is a strong part of my treatment and treatment protocol. So I'll give you one story. So I had a woman come to me. She was 26 years old, and she in my intake, I found that she had been really probably since let's see. So this let's just say this is in July. So from the April, she had gotten food poisoning when she traveled with her friend to another country. They both got food poisoning. But her friend got over the food poisoning. And for her, she was not able to hold anything down. And so now we're in July. She comes to me. She is in and out of the hospital getting IVs. They tell her at some point, you're starting to react to the plastic in the IVs, go home and do the best you can. So to her, they were like, go home and see if you can survive. So she was at her wit's end when she came to me. Like you said, there are some people who know nothing about acupuncture. She thought I was going to be wearing robes and chanting around her. I mean, she had
Yeah.
no idea what I was going to be doing, right? And so in my intake, I started just asking her, what else has been going on, and I use a lot of muscle testing, and I found that in my process that she was dealing with a residual parasite that was not well detected. And this is my energy medicine thing, so claims here. And she also had a neuroemotional thing that was going on for her that was really preventing her from getting well as well. So as much as she wanted to get well, those neuroemotional complexities are really kind of living out our history, if you will. So in the process of doing the neuroemotional technique with her NET, I found that when she was 6, her mother passed away when her mom was 26, right? So her buy-in as a 6-year-old is that mom's die at 26.
Wow.
And she was 26. At 26, she had gotten into a bicycle accident and almost died, right, in February, which is like the month she turned 26. And then this event that she had in April with this chronic, unable to hold anything down. And in her little neuroemotional physiology, she thought she was supposed to die. So her body was doing as much as it could possibly do to serve that, right? That death wish, if you will. So I did the NET and the treatments and the, liver cleanse, did the parasite cleanse. And she stopped coming in. And of course, like you, I'm very curious, right? So yeah. I'm living in a town where I know where she has her store. So like some 6 months later, I go into her store and go, how are you doing? Right? She goes, I'm fine. She said, I'm really great. I've not felt better since, I finished your treatments with you, but I'm that curious mind. I want to know, like, if someone had an elbow issue or a knee issue and they do a few treatments, they don't come back. It's like, did you not come back because you think that you're, didn't get results, or because you did get results? I want to know, like, can I make myself better as a practitioner? I can if I know. So, that's probably one of, just being people's last resorts. Because I was initially brought into Chinese medicine because my own health, which was Crohn's disease, I treated a lot of like pathogens, autoimmune, things that were really, really chronic and severe. So you're my last resort was something that I heard almost every day. I had a new patient. And so I would love to see people not wait till they've tried everything else, because acupuncture is just not well known in that way. But you literally can treat pretty much anything that you would with any other practice, but it's natural, right? Of course, if you're hit by a bus or something, I'm like, go get your body fixed, right? Because that was what it was for me. I mean, I was I was finishing pre-meds for medical school and got Crohn's disease and ended up with 7 surgeries, and it saved my life, but it did nothing for the healing system, because there is no healing system in Western medicine, right?
Right, exactly. They kind of abandon you there. And I think that's the thing. The proof in the pudding with acupuncture is a lot of times people first walk in the door on a like last ditch resort, right? But then once they experience it, then it becomes their first line of defense.
Yes.
Like after I healed
something.
Yeah, it's like after I healed my eczema, then I was like, anytime I needed something, instead of going to all these other avenues, I would start with acupuncture. And so I think that like people, they shift their mind once they actually experience it. And so, it's a matter of just raising awareness. It's a really powerful modality of healing. And in the Western world, particularly, it's really not appreciated for what it is. And it's really misunderstood. I still know people like, being a Christian myself, I still know people who think it's like demonic. And I'm like, no, it's working on a physiological level. It's amazing. It's healing.
Yes, absolutely. And its origin is is always kind of an interesting factor, but the research today, it's very clear that it's it serves the medical field.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think if we're looking at that and weighing like heavy narcotics and some of the stuff that the medical world will give you,
Yeah,
exactly, versus something so holistic. Like I'm
Hmm.
always going to go the holistic route. Okay, so
At
as
least
a
try it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. At least give it a try. If it's not for you, I think most people will find it's for them. But like you don't have to go back if it's not for you. Like no one's forcing you. But
Yeah.
so for you as a traditional Chinese medicine expert, what are some of your favorite like herbals or just remedies that you like to incorporate into
Um,
your own life?
yeah. You know, that's a good question because I actually really lean towards nutrition
Mm-hmm.
more so than Chinese herbs.
Okay.
Because, and I'll tell you why. It's because when I went to school 43 years ago, right? I chose not to do herbs. I chose to just do acupuncture, which is what you do it in China. You pick one or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I studied herbs as I went, I am not one to pretend that I know herbs the same way that someone who studied herbs that is like a real master at herbology. They are amazing. Like people who know Chinese herbs, like your TCM doctor, if he knows Chinese herbs, he takes your pulse, looks at your tongue, and creates a remedy, like a package for you that's
Yeah.
specific. We're talking about another level. So if
Yeah.
I want Chinese herbs, I'm going to Chinatown and I'm going to the pharmacy and I'm having them take my pulse, look at my tongue, and pull out the little drawers with the little things of sticks and twigs and bugs, right? Bug shells, because those are the masters for sure.
Right.
So my tendency is more to do like I like glutathione. I take
Mm-hmm.
glutathione every day. And so I'm looking at kind of things that are detoxing. I use my body stone every day. Things that are detoxing. I do, a sauna at least 3 times a week, and I have my body stone in the sauna. So I'm, doing
Nice.
the lymphatic drainage in the sauna. So and the studies for that are amazing for doing detox or doing saunas, doing any type of detox is a life changer and time adder. It adds life.
Mm-hmm.
It adds life to the end of your lifespan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. That sounds amazing. And I like that approach too of like nutrition and lifestyle being such, I love herbs, all that. Like I do that as well, but you can't replace the foundations, right? You
That's
can't replace
that's
those
right.
fundamentals of like nutrient deficiencies, of detoxing, of moving your body, all those different things. And I love to ask the experts, what is your health and wellness goal?
My goal? Oh, interesting. You know what? I actually would say that my goal is probably pretty, a lot of what a lot of other people's goals look like, which is consistency. My goal
Yeah.
is consistency because I travel a lot, and sometimes that gets me kind of off my tr- trajectory, my regime, right? But I try, I don't judge myself, and I don't judge, every time we fall off. The whole idea is
Right.
you get back on, right?
Yeah.
So, I know my weaknesses as far as traveling, or food, or things like that. Knowing I'm going to lose my pattern, if you will, when I travel, so that if I want to get back on like yoga and doing the sauna, for example, I put it on my schedule. So I
Hmm.
actually put it on my schedule so that I know I'm going to jump back into it. So it's just non-negotiable, right?
Right.
And not to say that I haven't flown from the West Coast to the East Coast and had an 8 o'clock yoga class that I didn't make. It happens, but it's still on my schedule for maybe not Monday, but
Yeah.
Wednesday, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's where like that grace comes in because I think when people do spiral and they judge themselves, then they're way
Yeah,
less likely to go do it versus you're like, okay, like that
agreed.
kind of like that detachment. Sometimes you have to be a little detached, be like, okay, that was
Yeah.
yesterday, this is today.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I also think that the human condition is to look for excuses,
Yep.
right? Because the long-term goal, short-term pain, long-term goal are, we're kind of that's our motivation is to avoid short-term pain. Well, short-term pain is getting up and doing maybe something you don't want to do in that moment. But, it's the long-term gain that's the harder part to really kind of capture on that in that moment. And so
Yeah.
sometimes really just having your long-term goals in front of you to know, what, and dates are important because maybe it's just for, Thanksgiving. Hey, we're having a family reunion in Thanksgiving. I know we're going to be doing this like major hike or whatever it is that I want to be prepared for. I know I can start the week before. I'm going to go ahead and do like, like doing the facelift system. You don't want to start the day before, right? You want to start 30 days before. If you want to be able to walk that trail with everybody else or go horseback or whatever it is, you don't want to start the day before or the week before. You're going to be so sore you're not going to be able to go, right? So sometimes just keeping those like immediate timelines in front of you is definitely help for reinstating.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that approach. Well, where can people find you, find your company if they want to either shop True Energy or even come to your practice?
Yeah. So True Energy, you can do trueenergyskincare.com, which is one U with True, TRU energy skincare.com. So my practice is in Jacksonville, Florida. But I'm 65, so I'm somewhat, retired from my brick and mortar. So I don't practice very often. My husband is still practicing, and he pretty much does all of my intakes and things like that, so that I can really kind of capture my time while I'm there.
Yeah.
But we have great practitioners in our office. Great practitioners. All of them are, great with the emotional work, especially.
Amazing. That's so awesome to hear. And yeah, I'm definitely like, after hearing this episode, I'm like, this sounds like the coolest system. I'm sold. And if you guys love this episode, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and make sure to check out True Energy. Give it a little shop if you want to do a natural facelift like I do, then this might be the solution for you. Thank you so much for joining me today, Cathy.
Thank you, Delaney.